Welcome back. This is video number 2. You're with Chris and Joel, and this is 80s music twin rings. Talking about 80s music because we believe that's the best decade of music. And over the course of a year, I went through 80s bands using this top 40 book here, showing all the bands. We got over 100 bands I went through, listening to all their hits, cutting ranks of those. I ranked the bands based on that, ranked top 10 lists based on that, and then I asked Chris to make a list. I don't know that he was that involved, but he made his own list, and for our first ranking, we came up with Huey Lewis and the News.
That just means that's our favorite.
Correct. I ranked this band number 2. My number 1 band, he didn't even rank in the top 25, go figure. So if you thought twins fought alike, the answer is no. He ranked Huey Lewis number 3 on his list, and therefore we got Huey Lewis as the first ranked. So, just a brief history here. Huey Lewis started putting out CDs in 1980, so they are a legitimate 80s band.
Yeah, hopefully you can see this.
They didn't have any hits on that first one. As a matter of fact, I remember Huey Lewis saying they just put it out to make money, and they didn't believe any of the stuff was very good.
They did have a hit, though, because later they re-released a song called Trouble in Paradise.
It was a live version, I forget, it was on probably their greatest hits, if I'm correct. Which is Time Flies, and I put that down here. They released that in 1996. 2 years later, Picture This came out, and it had, well, technically, the book says it had 3 hits, two that you know about. One didn't make the top 40, which was Working for a Living. Somehow that didn't make the top 40, but it was a hit and was on MTV. Their first legitimate hit was Do You Believe in Love, and that was in 1982.
Yeah.
Then came Sports. Chris told you last week that that was his first cassette you ever bought.
Right, and you own Picture This.
I own Picture This.
Yeah, these were cassettes that we owned.
Yes.
It wasn't digital or CDs even.
Even later, I was still buying records. I had the record for 4. But I remember specifically hearing the full cassette of Sports, not through you, but when we went on a marching band trip to Florida by bus. We had a large band at Manchester High School.
Some people brought some Walkmans.
Yes, we had the Walkmans that you pressed your cassette player, listened to headphones. I listened to a friend of ours, he had Sports, listened to it on the Walkman on the way down there. Interestingly, one of the buses broke down on the way back, and we all had to jam pack onto one bus. I don't know if that's legal, but we did it. Okay, so that was in 1993, and with Sports, you're going to see something interesting. With these top 10 rankings, we asked you to rank your own. Maybe you did that or not. But the grouping of songs that we picked are based on, one, if it was a Billboard hit. And they list them from 1 to 100. This book only has the top 40, but Billboard does list by the hundreds. If they were a single, sometimes they were put out on the radio, but they never made the top 40. Believe it or not, Back in Time from Back to the Future never was ranked, although it was on the radio all the time. The other way is sometimes they'd put a video out, but it wasn't released as a single, and that was Bad is Bad, which came from Sports. You'd see the video, but it was even on the radio, but it wasn't considered a single. So that was also an option to be ranked.
Yeah, and one of my favorite songs on it was the last one to be released from Sports was Walking on a Thin Line, and they didn't put that out on their greatest hits. I'm like, oh, I love that song.
I consider that song actually the most underrated song because it only got up to 18 on the charts. That doesn't make any sense to me because it's a very good song. All right, so they skipped a couple years album-wise, but we do know in 1985, and I told you guys last week, watch for the year 1985. It's the best year for music. And they didn't even have a CD from 1985, but they did put out a couple songs that was from the awesome movie Back to the Future. Then a year later, people were really itching for another CD from them. They put 4 out. And their first single was Stuck With You. That actually made it to number 1. And stayed at number 1.
Was that their first number 1? Probably their first number 1.
It was not their first number 1. Power of Love from Back to the Future was their first number 1.
Which wasn't on Sports again.
But Stuck With You stayed longest at number 1 for 3 weeks. And guess what? It didn't make our top 10. It's honorable mention.
I think I have it on my top 10 just because I got sick of it.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
it's got a little bit. I know when the video came out, and you know what? A lot of Huey Lewis, their success is because of MTV and their videos.
That's true. 2 years later, they had Small World, and there was only 3 songs released from that. One of them I don't even remember ever hearing on the radio. Give Me the Keys.
I had the album, so I heard all of them.
Listed. I've heard it, but I've never heard it on the radio.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
Yes, and it didn't do very good. I wouldn't say it's underrated because I heard it, and there's not very much to it. Then 2 years later, we got into the 90s, and a year after that, Hard at Play, and they had a couple days off. Hit Me Like a Hammer, and I did verify. Hit Me Like a Hammer had 2 different solos. One was a guitar solo that was on the release video, but you can also get a version where there's a saxophone solo in the middle. So again, this is a band that had a lot of instruments to it. And one of the things we said is the people back then, the lead singer even could play an instrument. What did Huey Lewis play? What did he play?
A harmonica.
Harmonica, and you can hear that on Working
Yeah, and
for
you
a
can
Living.
hear a lot of horns because they had Tower
Power. A band they used a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so after Hard at Play, it went downhill from there because they decided to imitate 60s music.
They did cover songs.
Cover songs. Believe it or not, they released an album with 7 songs last year called Weather. It has 7 songs, and they're old, so take heed listening to that because they're not like they used to be.
Yeah. I actually saw Huey Lewis in the news. They were at Stark County Fairgrounds 15 years ago. And Huey Lewis was there, his original drummer, and he had one other band member from the original group. That was it. They only had three original members there. But people brought albums to get autographed, and they sound pretty good.
Okay,
They
so
played only their hits.
out of this list, Chris doesn't know what the top 10 is. He just gives me the list and I average it, and we're revealing it today, and he'll hear it for the first time. So Sports has 6 hits when you consider Bad is Bad as a hit, and 4 had a bunch of hits too, 6 of them. And another song that I've never heard of, I'll get there actually. Let me reveal what the top 10 list is. And I'm not going to let you, you can just plug it in like you did before. Don't worry about doing this. Okay, for our top 10, number 10, I rank this song as my number 2 song. I like it. Never heard it on the radio, but somehow it hit number 9 on the charts. Yeah, even though, have you ever heard that on the radio?
What song? You didn't tell me what song.
Sorry, you ranked this as number 21. I'm like, what? And I had it on number 2. So that's why it's on the top 10. It's I Know What I Like.
And I like that song. You know, I have the greatest hits, so when I play the CD in my car and it comes to after they do the solo, comes to the part where they do just the guitar, I crank that up.
That's right.
Sounds pretty cool.
I had that too. You had it 21. That's number 10. Number 9 was only 13 on my list, 8 on his. That's why it's number 9. Is Heart and Soul. So we got 1 for 4. 1 for Sports.
Yeah, Heart and Soul was the very first single they put out from Sports too.
Number 8, Back in Time from Back to the Future. And that one has...
I didn't have that in my top 10, did I?
No, you had that as number 12. I had it as 7. And I believe that song has a saxophone solo and a guitar solo. Number 7. Both of us rank this as number 6 on our charts, Walking on a Thin Line.
We already talked about that.
That's right.
We both like it.
Number 6, where are we? 6, yes. I had this ranked lower than you. You had this number 3, I had this number 9. Because again, this is one of the songs you hear over and over and over. I wish radio stations that say we play anything would actually play something else from this group besides the same old song. Like, I Know What I Like, if that was ranked, play it nowadays. Okay, so that would be Heart of Rock and Roll, number 6 for us. Number 5, Jacob's Ladder from 4. I ranked this as number 4. You ranked it as number 7. And interestingly, when you're young like we were when it was released back in this, We wrote music or lyrics, and I actually had a song on my fake album called Step by Step, and that was because of Jacob's Ladder. If you know what the chorus is, Step by Step. Okay, number 4, Hip to Be Square. He ranked this as his second best song. I listed it down the charts at 8. I do like the video where they actually have a camera angle going for the stick.
Yeah, and right at the top of the fret of the guitar, yeah.
Yeah, now this song kind of made famous a little bit by the movie American Psycho, where some guy is killed as Christian Bale's character explains how good this song is. And interestingly, Huey Lewis has a parody of that scene
with Weird Al.
With Weird Al. And you'd think he'd actually want to do that scene with Ray Parker Jr., not Weird Al. Get to that later. Okay, and the song that Weird Al parodied was "I Want a New Drug." We haven't hit that one yet. He actually called his song "I Want a New Duck," complete with quacking sounds. Number 3, I listed this as 5. You're at 4. It was a couple days off. Hard to Play. 3 songs off of this album, and yeah, we put this one this high. It's got a good intro.
And did intros with drums, which we like.
Yes, when you're drummers, we both learned the drums, so we like drum songs. One of the reasons I don't like today's music is there's not very many songs you can play the drums to legitimately.
Although we both don't care for too much for is If This Is It, even though that starts with drums, but that's just a drum roll.
Correct. All right. Number 2, I just mentioned it, is I Want a New Drug. I list that as number 3. You got that as number 5. And again, mentioned Ray Parker Jr. If you didn't know this, Ghostbusters is considered a the song Ghostbusters is considered a rip-off of the thing.
Because it has the same
I Want a New Drug. I don't understand ever suing anybody based on songs. Don't they all sound alike? I know they do.
Here's why I don't understand why they did that is Huey Lewis has a song called "Do You Believe in Love?" that the lyrics. Okay, here's the lyrics to "Do You Believe in Love?" It starts out, "I was walking down a one-way street, just looking for someone to meet." Right. Well, ELO, Electric Light Orchestra,
same thing,
put out a song called "Sweet Talking Woman," which was one of their hits. And they have lyrics. It was, "I was searching on a one-way street. I was hoping for a chance to meet." It's the same line.
Huey's got to be
Not only that, the second time Huey Lewis goes through the lyrics, he goes, "Now I'm hoping," and it goes, "Hoping," which ELO did in Sweet Talking Woman. He's like, "I was searching." So Huey Lewis ripped off ELO. Yeah. So why wasn't he sued?
and the thing is, music, there's only so much you can do with music. Yeah. Everyone's copying everybody eventually. There's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah, there's no new music. Everybody's copying.
Okay. And you look at today's music, they actually take riffs from 80s music and put it behind their music. That's for rappers mostly. But they're probably paying for the music. Okay, number 1, I think is more than obvious, comes from 1985. The only song we haven't mentioned from Back to the Future would be "The Power of Love."
Right, and everybody likes to sing at the beginning, dun 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 dun.
That's right. And here's another interesting thing that I read. If it wasn't for the suing of Ray Parker Jr., he may never have done this song. The reason he got involved with Back to the Future was because he had to sue Ray Parker Jr. for a song that was from a movie, Ghostbusters. And that got him into the Back to the Future, and I'm sure you all know this if you look closely. Huey has a cameo in there.
You don't have to look close.
As Michael J. Fox actually plays that song, Huey stands up and says, "You're playing it too loud." And then he went on to have other movie roles as well.
What's even funnier is that song was just played 5 minutes earlier at the beginning of the movie when Michael J. Fox is doing a skateboard trying to get to school. "Power of Your Love" is playing in the background, wasn't it?
That's right, yes.
Yes. Then he plays it 5 minutes later, but they only did the intro. They didn't get to the scene.
And I had to look today. I don't know if I buy this. I'll tell you what, there's a lot of videos out there about people first time hearing. And I looked to see if anybody did a first time hearing for Power of Love. There was. And that means they've never seen Back to the Future. Come on.
That's hard to believe.
Come on. Hard to believe. I wonder if a lot of them, they didn't hear that for the first time. I'm going to say we haven't heard this. Let's go listen to it. I'll do my own video. So that was Huey Lewis and the News. All right, if you agree with our top 10 list, comment below if we can get the comments to actually stay up and running. But next week...
Yeah, right now it said comments are off. I tried to turn them on and it still said they were off. So I have to figure that out.
But next week will be our number 2 selection as far as grouping. Huey was first. The next one is a drummer from the 80s. Hard to guess that, right? Phil Collins. He'll be tomorrow's or next week's top 10 list. Until then, we'll see you then. I'm Joel.
And I'm Chris.
Bye.